After Effects Beta gets a long-awaited feature, there's a new physics in town, and Midjourney jumps into the video generation game. It's Motion Mondays, and would you like to watch me grow a beard? Midjourney just launched their first AI video generation model and honestly is pretty darn good. They're calling it V1, and while you're not going to get photorealistic humans with perfect lip sync like Google's VO3, they're optimizing for something different. Midjourney has always been known for making it easier to create visually striking, surreal, designy stuff, and their video model feels optimized for exactly that. The company has bigger goals than just generating B-roll for Hollywood. CEO David Hulse wrote a blog post explaining their vision. They're eventually trying to get real-time open-world simulations using AI. So this video model is just the next logical step. I wanted to test if I could generate stock assets for After Effects like white paint strokes for Luma mats. The generator works fast, it's about a minute per generation, but like any AI tool, it's a bit of a slot machine. You don't have quite the control that you need for precise results yet because you can only give Midjourney the starting image, but it's getting there. But here's the big question looming over Midjourney. Are they going to get sued out of existence? Remember that lawsuit Disney and Marvel brought against them for training on copyrighted content? Well, last week, a federal judge said that training AI on copyrighted works is fair use. This case involved Anthropic and their Claude model, though it really mattered how those books were obtained. Here's a key difference. In the Anthropic case, the judge downplayed competition from AI-generated content because the work wasn't meant to compete with those authors. However, Midjourney can create work that's sometimes indistinguishable from original artwork it was trained on, which could cause real market harm. So while Midjourney is super cool, I'd be very cautious using output in professional work until we know how this ends. Here's a super cool tool from AE Scripts you may not know about. Projection 3D just updated to version 5. It's for camera projection mapping in After Effects, something very common in high-end VFX for set extensions and matte paintings. Traditionally though, this has been difficult in After Effects since it doesn't have the same tool set as Nuke or Fusion. Version 5 is a huge update because it integrates After Effects' new 3D system. You can now create camera projections, export 3D geometry as OBJ files, re-import them back into AE, and have fully 3D objects that integrate with your projections. This takes that fake parallax trick to whole new levels. One really cool thing you can do is import or create a depth map for your image, then instantly extrude it to create a 3D version. There's also a nifty integration with Blender to create realistic animated water. The plugin has been completely revamped with a new interface to make it simpler to get good results. If you're doing visual effects or just want that fake 3D effect on images, you should definitely check this out. One of my favorite design resources is True Grit Texture Supply, and they just released a cool pack called PlastiSoul, a vintage tea distressing kit. When you look at motion design work all day, you see a lot of trends and the same textures over and over, but this is one you don't normally see, that cracked screen print texture you get on vintage teas. This is obviously useful for t-shirt mockups, but I think it's more interesting to consider how looks like this could be integrated into motion design. That mixed media retro look is so hot right now, and by nature it requires manual work to make designs look imperfect. You could use this as a texture overlay or an alpha matte and get very cool results without much work. It's available for Photoshop, Illustrator, Procreate, Clip Studio, and Affinity for as cheap as $30. And here's an interesting thing I noticed. The licensing clearly states you cannot use this to train generative AI datasets. They don't want companies like Midjourney using these textures to train models that create infinity versions of their products. I haven't seen terms like this before, but it makes total sense. Time for a quick School of Motion news roundup. Last week, we launched Premiere for Motion Designers, our first Premiere course, and I'm biased, but it's amazing. Instructor Kyle Hamrick teaches motion designers everything they need to know about editing. Not just how Premiere works, but real-world workflows and tips that make you work so much faster. If you're using After Effects to edit, you are wasting time. Premiere is such a better tool for this. Kyle shows you audio features, organization, how to think like an editor, plus explains Premiere's deep integration with After Effects. Check out Premiere for Motion Designers on our All Access platform. We also have 2 free courses that you can take immediately. The Path to MoGraph is a deep dive into the art and industry of motion design. You'll see a day in the life at 4 different studios, complete project breakdowns, learn about tools and earning potential, plus basic design and animation skills. Level Up is for working artists figuring out their next step. It features over 3 hours of lessons taught by Ryan Summers covering how to develop your artistic voice, which skills to learn, creating personal projects that align with career goals, and positioning yourself in the market. Both are free and the links are in the description. And a quick shout out to our very own Aaron Rabinowitz, who last week celebrated the 20-year anniversary of his first ever tutorial for Creative Cow. He's definitely one of the OGs of the tutorial world. You know, it's tough keeping up with all the design and animation apps. Seems like every other day, There's a new one. I found out about two recently from a company called Linearity. First, they have Curve, a vector design app for Mac designed to be simpler to learn than Illustrator. So many companies are looking for designers who can work really fast. Illustrator is the most powerful vector tool, but there's a learning curve. Linearity works on Mac, iPad, and iPhone with seamless syncing. You can use an Apple Pencil, export in all formats, and scale your designs infinitely. But we're motion designers. We like stuff to move, and so that's why Linearity also makes Move, which looks like a simple animation app compared to After Effects. They're calling it Keynote on steroids with a simplified animation UI so you can animate much faster when you just need to get it done. It also imports directly from Curve, but also from Illustrator, Sketch, and Figma. There's even a free Figma plugin where you can copy and paste designs directly into Move and start animating. As motion design spreads into different use cases, being aware of simpler tools that let you work faster is pretty helpful. Who likes reading white papers? Is it just me? That's fine. Okay, well, the Utah Graphics Lab dropped a new simulation method called Augmented Vertex Block Descent. I know. Super sexy name. Anyway, it's lightning fast and very stable. And you may not think about this if you're using dynamics in Blender and Cinema 4D, but the techniques to calculate what your geometry is doing comes from research papers that eventually get integrated into 3D apps. Current state-of-the-art has lots of issues. If you've tried dense dynamic simulations, you know how difficult realistic results can be. Utah researchers developed a new technique that overcomes issues with current methods. It's very stable and parallelizable, God, it's hard to say, meaning you can use a GPU to solve these faster. There's even an online demo you can run in your browser, clicking and dragging blocks to see how fast and accurate the simulation runs. Getting physically accurate chains and ropes is more doable with this method, requiring less simulation time and compute. So hopefully this makes dynamic simulations less painful once it's implemented into the software that we know and love. Time to feature great work from around the industry. First, our friends at the Little Labs did a complete website and brand refresh, showcasing their style and positioning them as a nimble experimental studio. We recently interviewed founder Aradna Bejarano on our podcast. What's cool about the Little Labs is their versatility, different styles, tools, and project types. They're making Lottie sticker packs, creating interactive designs with great case studies on their site. They've also got some cool Rive experiments. Next, here is an artist I was unfamiliar with, Borja Holke, who has a wild portfolio site with super cool type animation. There's a typography playground section showing really unique and clever work. He popped up on my radar via LinkedIn saying he's playing with Cavalry daily, and this makes sense because his work is so type heavy, and Cavalry has crazy capabilities for animating type. Excellent, because last week we also started outlining our upcoming Cavalry course. Finally, friend of School of Motion Justin Harder keeps his portfolio updated. Bookmark it and check it monthly. There's crazy work showing endless different styles, amazing boards that seem to animate themselves. He's a master of typography and mixing clean vector design with just the right amount of grit and texture. It's awesome stuff. Check it out. Links will be in the description. Here's a crazy After Effects tool from Motion Design School. Not School of Motion, Motion Design School.
Same, but different.
Super 3D for After Effects, and this one, to be honest, kind of blew my mind. It's a powerful extension that expands your 3D capabilities, giving you a toolkit to use After Effects' new 3D engine with a simpler interface and clever tech for adding textures, almost like Grayscale Gorilla Studio, but for After Effects. You can add parametric primitives like cubes and spheres, building full 3D scenes directly in After Effects. One of the coolest things is controlling model textures directly in After Effects. You can convert 2D vector shapes into 3D models using the built-in extruder, lathe, and tube generators. You can import your own models too. It's very fast and makes getting into 3D much easier. Everybody likes free, right? Well, 3D artist Oleg Ushinok released a free set of 330 kitbash assets for creating post-apocalyptic industrial environments. Now, you don't always need a post-apocalyptic environment, but when you do, you won't get much better than this kit. There's everything you could think of. Metal rails, scaffolding, barrels, wires, pallets, different textures. Everything looks modeled and textured impeccably. The assets are FBX format, PBR textured, ready for commercial use under the Fab standard license. You can grab all of these at fab.com. And just in case 330 assets isn't enough, there's a paid version with over 5,000 models. $100 for professional use, $12 for personal. Oleg, where do you find the time, sir? That's incredible. Time for our School of Motion Student of the Week. Harini Arul Arasu is going through Photoshop and Illustrator Unleashed with TA Renato Cassis. One exercise challenges students to take assets and design style frames for a shaving cream ad. We hired an A-list scout model for this, by the way. If you've been doing this professionally for years, you might immediately see how a frame like this was done, but remember, there's a lot you need to know. Cutting out images properly, cleaning edges, laying out type, using brand color palettes. Harini put their own spin on this, giving me an almost halo-like green glow behind my head.
Gorgeous!
Great job. We cannot wait to see what you do next. Here are some very cool updates to the After Effects beta, including a feature motion designers have been pining for: the ability to natively stagger layers in time. It's been a long time coming, and it's finally here. There have been amazing third-party tools like Skew and Rift to handle this over the years, but now you can do a lot of what those plugins do natively. The integration is seamless. If you have an animation and you want to stagger layers, just select the layers, hold Command+Option or Control+Alt on a PC, then drag. You even get a handy pop-up showing total offset and offset per layer. You can select layers out of order and stagger them for a more random distribution. Adobe also added smooth zoom to composition and layer viewers. Hold Z and click and drag to zoom smoothly. There's info buttons next to effects in the presets panel that take you directly to help documentation, and you can now option drag layers to copy them in the comp window. Principal Product Manager Victoria Nice also posted that spot and parallel light shadows in the advanced 3D renderer are now faster and higher quality. All of this is available right now in the After Effects beta through Creative Cloud. Unreal Engine 5.6 launched recently with lots of cool updates motion designers are excited about. One I didn't know about: new control rig physics. YouTuber Stefan Biava posted a cool video showing off the feature and setup process. This lets you add automatic physics to rigged characters with lots of control. You can set which bones have physics and which don't, plus springiness and other settings. This gives you a tool to add automatic life to animations without manually keyframing all those secondary animations and overlaps. Unreal just continues getting more powerful and useful for motion designers. A few weeks ago, we posted my keynote from the AEPDX conference where I talked about the real-time 3D revolution. Well, Connor Rowan, president of Illinois-based Charter & Company Studios, announced the launch of Forge Virtual Studios in Chicago, a 30,000 square foot facility with a massive 82-foot by 16-foot LED volume. They've got production offices, ready-to-use assets, even AI generation for screen content. Virtual production gives you crazy control and flexibility. For certain shoots, it's much faster and cheaper than traditional methods. One testimonial on the site said that they filmed 30 interviews in one day with distinct backdrops. Almost impossible in real locations, but you just swap environments with mouse clicks when it's virtual. This really blurs the line between production and post-production, and I predict that we'll see more virtual studios popping up as Unreal gets better and more adopted. I hope more 3D artists start experimenting and selling this as a service to clients. And that is it for this episode of Motion Mondays. Don't forget to check out Premiere for motion designers on our all-access platform, available for individuals or teams of 3 or more. Also check out our 2 free courses, The Path to MoGraph and Level Up. Links will be in the description. See you next week.